Hey guys, this is Shaft, and guess what? I just lied to y'all. I'm blaming Battle.net on this one, so here's the story. Remember how I just promised you a Stefano game? Well, you know that whole patch switch thing? Well, it's not letting any of us load up the replay, so the Stefano replay is broken. However, in Super Emergency Save the Day mode, we were able to find something just as good. You guys are going to be excited to see these two players, but before we go into the players, let's announce the casters. With me today is Sensory Gaming's Matt C. Matt, how are you?
Doing pretty well, bro.
Glad to hear it. And the third wheel here, it's going to be White Wing. How's it going, Joel?
It's going fairly well, and being the third wheel is better than being the eighth wheel.
Indeed, but you know what's better than being the eighth wheel? Being the seventh wheel, because then you just don't make any sense at all.
It's true. It's very true.
Anyways, moving on. Let's go ahead right into the game here, because we've got something very, very special for you guys. Here on the bottom left-hand side of one of my favorite maps, it's DeMuslim. Actually, pause this, guys, because we switched over to Heart of the Swarm. It looks like Shaft forgot to turn on his camera keys. Bear with me 1 second. Now, after my epic fail, let's see if it works. Okay. Alright, that's beautiful. Now, here on the bottom left-hand side of the map, we've got the Red Terran playing for Evil Geniuses. It's DeMuslim. And on the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have my favorite orc player. He's the blue orc in the bottom right-hand corner. It's Grubby. And by orc, I mean...
Who is unfortunately no longer playing Warcraft 3.
Indeed. So I guess he's playing Protoss now. Same thing, beefy units, whatever. It's all cheap. Who cares? Anyways, we do have a pretty quick barracks coming out of DeMuslim. What was that, an 11 racks?
No, it looked like a 12 racks.
Oh, okay, okay. Guess the timing just looked weird to me. So that's still a fairly quick racks in TVP, isn't it?
It's fairly standard, actually.
Oh, okay.
One of the really interesting things about Heart of the Swarm is the deceleration trick that people discover in Wings of Liberty to avoid your workers decelerating right as they're reaching the mineral patches. Is actually built into the game now. So players will frequently have more money than they ordinarily are used to having.
Now, just in case people aren't familiar with that deceleration trick, can you give us a little more information?
It used to be that in Wings of Liberty, if you would take a worker and then send it to, as it's on its way back to a mineral patch, if you would right-click directly in front of the mineral patch and then quickly shift-click onto the mineral patch, instead of slowing down and then stopping as it reaches it, it would just run smack into the mineral patch and mine immediately.
Nice.
So it would save you it would give you a few percentage efficiency boost on mining.
Right, and when you've got 16 to 24 workers mining over the course of 30 minutes, I guess that will add up.
This is a really interesting build coming out of Grubby.
Yeah? Okay. Give us your thoughts on it.
Well, he went for a Nexus first into Forge against Terran.
Right.
And I haven't seen this since the 2 times in the GSL this happened. He's getting a quick photon cannon to help hold off any early aggression.
Well, it just seems like you could walk right around that photon cannon. This is a very wide ramp. You know, hug that corner, go up the ramp.
Yeah, that's a big part of the reason why it never became really all that standard or viable in Wings of Liberty.
Gotcha.
But it definitely can work, and it can win games.
Okay, yeah, because it allows you to get that economy up a lot quicker.
Absolutely.
So, what's the follow-up to this odd build?
Generally, it's just fairly standard play. The one thing this gives you a major advantage in is you can get your upgrade started a little bit sooner.
Okay.
And it gives you a little bit. It gives you that early detection against things like widow mines that try to run up your ramp into your mineral patches,
right?
Or into your so you can just if they try to burrow there, you can just pick them off with stalkers. It gives you a little bit early DPS against anything of that nature.
So, as a fairly competent Heart of the Swarm player yourself, what are your thoughts on widow mines?
They're very good units if used appropriately. I feel they're a lot better in TVZ than they are in TVP. But that's not to say that they have no use. They definitely do one-shot zealots and stalkers, sentries, and to splash to probes. Widowmine drops are fairly common.
Gotcha.
The higher level you get to, they tend to be even better than Hellbats the better you get, at least in terms of just doing drops.
Indeed, sir. So it looks like we've got a mothership core moving across the abyss of the bottom. It also appears that Hellions are going to be the play of the day right now for Muslim. So it may, I don't know, how are they going to, what is the mothership core going to do here?
The mothership core is to scout. He's looking to see exactly what's happening, and it's going to be it looks like it's going to be a Hellbat drop. He's getting the armory now to turn his Hellions into Hellbats. He's going to put up 4, should be putting 4 into the medevac, and then speed boosting into the middle line, and then turning them into Hellbats.
Gotcha.
About Hellbats, recently I heard they did get a bit of the way they work is going to be changed up a bit. Do you think that's going to hurt them, or they'll be the same?
It's going to hurt them. The way it was before is you could load up 4 Hellbats into a medevac drop, speed boost over a mineral line, and drop them all right into the minerals. And you could literally move your medevac faster than the workers could retreat, so you'd be dropping one at the end as they're retreating, right in front of them all. Now you can only put 2 Hellbats in a medevac. You can still put 4 Hellions in a medevac, but if you do, what winds up happening is that when they come out, if you try to turn them into Hellbats, the Protoss or the Zerg or even the Terran you're dropping against gets a few more seconds to pull other workers away. So he's going to just put the 2 Hellbats in and do a 2 Hellbat drop.
So we are going to have, they did take the Zelnaga. So you think Hellbat drops are going to be more common, or do you think they'll actually start to decline?
Now, just to interrupt here, we do have a pretty good Stalker spread for Grubby, and he's going to target down that medevac immediately. However, the increased speed on those medevacs makes certain it can get away safely. There is a bit of a drop here in the natural, and it does manage to kill off a couple of workers. That's 3 workers killed right now for DeMuslim, but more importantly was the lost mining time there.
Yeah, it was held fairly well by Grubby. He's still got a little bit of a worker lead. In terms of economy, the Terran's a little bit ahead because of mules, and he's got that 3rd base finishing up.
Right, and there are Phoenix on the way as well, so it looks like he's going to minimize any future drop plays very quickly.
Yeah, those Phoenix are to shut down future drops and to pick this one off here.
Indeed.
But in general, they're not going to be all that useful because, as we see from DeMuslim, he's not transitioning into mech, he's transitioning into mass bio.
Right, and mass bio, Marines, they do pretty well against Phoenix.
Oh, they do very well against Phoenix.
Indeed, sir. So we've got a 3rd Nexus on the way here for Grubby. Matt, please feel free to talk, man.
Something I just noticed, look at the top of the map here, there's a proxy pylon up there.
Indeed,
yeah,
sir.
It's something all Protoss players should be doing. Is putting, whenever they have an opportunity and they don't badly need a pylon in their base, they should be putting those pylons out on the map in interesting corners and all sorts of locations so that they can always do counterattacks later, they can do warp-ins, they can spot for drops that are moving along those edges. Just spreading your pylons out on the map is just an excellent skill.
Indeed, sir, indeed. So, DeMuslim is, following up with Bio, but he's got such a small army at this point. What's holding him back right now?
Well, he took that super fast 3rd command center, and because he committed to a fast Hellion drop, or Hellbat drop, as I should say, with 4 Hellions running in the front, that's going to cut down his army count a bit. But it did put him into an economic lead, so his army will be, his army will be a bit bigger a little bit later.
Indeed, sir, indeed. So we've got a little bit of repair going on, and this is a minor push-out. I think it's mostly just to apply some pressure to this 3rd. Do you think he's going to really get any kills here, or is he just kind of checking Grubby?
It doesn't look like his army is big enough to really do any serious damage here, especially with these Phoenix to kill the medevacs.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Stimpak, nice. Not getting the Phoenix kill, though.
Phoenixes are fairly durable units, given the fact that they tend to be the quicker, smaller units. They have a lot of hit points for what they are.
Right.
He's going to bring the mothership core over for that photon overcharge.
At this stage of the game, generally I feel like Time Warp is even better than the photon overcharge, especially since it costs less energy.
It looks like Grubby trying to bait out a force field by sending in the Phoenix. Not going to fall for it, though.
Yeah.
Alright, so we've got a scan here. He does see the position on that warp.
Photon overcharge coming out.
Yep, there it is.
And the force field's going to block that off. And he's going to get pushed back, though. The Marauders and Marines pushing him back towards the cannon. He's going to warp in a couple more units here. Really, neither side losing a lot here. He's going to pick off that Hellbat, though.
Indeed,
Yeah.
sir.
Those Phoenixes in this situation are worth quite a bit because they really discourage the Muslim from attempting drops. They can attack the medevacs with impunity during the actual fights, and they can lift the few amount of Hellbats he has that really do the tanking.
Yeah.
The Phoenix!
Wow.
Looks like he just left those sitting there.
Yeah, he must have been out macroing somewhere because that was real sloppy. He did lose 2 Phoenix there, and this is actually giving DeMuslim the ability to go ahead and push in here with impunity because of the healing of the medevacs. He cleans up the rest of the Phoenix, and he's done a lot of damage to the Protoss army. He's actually 40, almost 50 supply ahead now, so if he just runs back, he's in a good position. He's taken his own third. Now, there was a little bit of harassment here at the natural. Grubby sending the single warrior zealot in. 3 workers have been killed so far. He's not targeting down, however, and the concussive shells will ultimately be the death of him. But that zealot was a blade master, guys. He was a blade master in a past life.
The problem for Grubby is that with this opening he did, and with the Phoenix defense that he's been relying on, he doesn't have any really considerable splash damage to deal with this stim medevac healed army.
Right, even Archon's not really able to hold off there. He does target down that Archon. He's retreating back to the defense of his medevacs, getting the perfect angle. Grubby not doing the best job here with positioning, it looks like.
Well, I mean, look at how small his army is. He just got a couple zealots, a couple Archons, a couple stalkers.
Yeah, but he keeps getting baited out. He did have a concave there, but he's not really controlling his units the way I expect from, the Grubby.
He's going to go High Templars with the Storm. I'm sorry, not High Templars, the Storm.
Yeah, Grubby's actually uncharacteristically floating a bit of money here. He's out of gas, which is why he's having difficulty spending it because he wants to building gas units right now, stalkers, etc. So he's going to go ahead and rectify that by realizing he just needs to build zealots right now.
Gotcha. And with this heavy zealot composition, do you think that charge would be something he can look forward to, or is concussive shells really going to put an end to even that idea?
Given that his opponent is not making Hellbats or Hellions, charge is a fantastic choice right here. And he actually starts it off right as I say that.
Nice. You are a prophet.
Yeah, a nasty drop in the back.
In the back, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, nice little drop here. Let's see how many workers we've got killed so far.
The Time Warp comes down. He's going to storm off part of that, kill off a couple of those Marines, and he's splitting his army here. The Mothership Corps is going to focus down that one side. The Stalker's going to blink up towards the top. Really, not actually. Nope. It looks like the Terran player's going to pull through here due to the amount of Marines with the stim pack.
Indeed,
yeah, that was just some great splitting. Didn't take much damage from the storms.
Yeah, he actually only killed about 2 to 3 units with that storm. It looked like.
Yeah, that drop is still going in the back of his Bane.
And that's a big win right there for the Terran player.
Yes, sir. So it's actually 12 workers killed for Muslim right now. Something I would like to note, though, is that DeMuslim has 100 supply advantage. Grubby seems to be forgetting to produce in these major battles, and that lack of macro has ultimately just crippled his production. He's actually floating 1160 minerals and 650 gas right now.
Yeah, I feel like Grubby was trying to be a little bit too fancy this game, trying to do a few too many different things that aren't really standard. All at once, and he really got gas starved badly for a while there. He didn't really want to make zealots. He didn't really feel like he wanted them. He wanted units like stalkers to use with the sentry range, to use range with the force fields. He wanted Phoenix. He wanted Archons. He wanted Storm, and he just didn't really have enough gas for it. So he wound up just having a really low supply count. Wound up having almost no real tech because he was spending all of his gas on units. And DeMuslim just went up for a straight-up Marine Marauder medevac build, which just kind of overran him.
Yeah, and 2 forges. I don't know. You don't see that often.
2 forge is definitely a fantastic thing against Bio very frequently, but only when you're committing to a single tech. When you're going Stargate Phoenix along with High Templar and Storm at the same time and making stalkers. You can't really afford double forge at the same time.
Yeah, it does gas starve you, but even so, it goes back to his macro because he's not gas starved. He's sitting on 650 right now.
Well, at this point, he's gas starved, but earlier, when it really mattered, when the
Mm-hmm.
fights were starting, he was gas starved.
Oh, okay. I actually didn't notate that, so gotcha. But yeah, hey, it happens, man. Grubby's still Grubby. He's still my favorite orc player.
He still has some fantastic micro. The fact that he even made a couple of those later battles when he was so far behind in supply, as close as he did, is indicative of that.
Indeed, sir. Indeed. Well, man, this looks like it's going to wrap up, our 5-game cast here. But, just in conclusion, what are your thoughts on the transition from Wings of Liberty to Heart of the Swarm? What are the... Because that's kind of what we did here. We started with We started with Wings of Liberty. Then we went to Wings of Liberty post-patch, kind of upgraded UI kind of thing, and then now we're in Heart of the Swarm. So we've kind of done a transition over this cast. What do you think the overall transition is going to be like the metagame going into Heart of the Swarm as soon as it hits the shelf? What are we looking at here?
Well, it really depends on which matchups you're referring to, because they all change in very different ways. TVP, for the most part, mech is starting to open up a little bit, although a lot of players are still having trouble with it. It's going to take a bit longer for them to really figure it out. But TVP, for the most part, is actually quite similar to how it was in Wings of Liberty. There are changes here and there that make small differences, but overall, strategically, it's essentially the same. Terrans have a tendency to go Marine Marauder Medevac, abuse mobility, do drops, limit the Protoss while expanding more rapidly than the Protoss themselves, and eventually just wear the Protoss out. Protoss has a few more options to really experiment, things like the Oracle and whatnot, which can be very valid against Terran. But in the end, it doesn't really affect Terran's strategy all that much.
Right. I guess the medevac speed maybe does a little more emphasis on the micro end of things rather than necessarily macro. But Terran's always kind of had that advantage anyway. Other matchups, mirror matchup, PvP.
PvP has changed drastically because of two minor changes. The addition of the Mothership Core has drastically limited the overall power of early game pressure. Because your opponent can turn his Nexus into a cannon. And you can't do that at your opponent's base even with your own Mothership Core.
Right.
The other major change was the elimination of warp in on the high ground with low ground pylons. So the 4-gate is now completely dead and is no longer really an option.
Gotcha.
So this has drastically limited the aggression you can do very early on. Things like the blink nerf, which increased the research time required to get blink, have limited slightly the weaknesses of blink all-ins to compensate for the addition of the Mothership Core.
All right.
So we're seeing a lot more Stargate play. There are Oracle openers that can happen. And there were all sorts of interactions, and it's going to be a long time before people really figure out that matchup. Especially since the late game is no longer going to be mass Colossus, because Tempests absolutely murder Colossus.
Yeah. Tempest, beastly units, man.
How do you feel about the range on the Tempest right now?
I have mixed feelings about it. I like the unit. It's very fun to use because it doesn't do a lot of damage and it takes a lot of careful control and positioning. But at the same time, in some ways, it can be a little bit too strong. I'm not sure I'd call it broken or overpowered yet, but it might be.
It's definitely something to look at, though. That does have quite a good range on it, and you can, like you said, with practice, that can be very, very, advantageous to have.
Right. So, now moving on, we just covering all three of your matchups here. How does Heart of the Swarm change Zerg versus Orc for you?
Well, I've never actually seen Zerg for Orcs.
What I'm Protoss, bud.
I know what you mean. It changes it actually more than the other matchups. Well, more than PvT changes quite a bit. Right now, Protoss players are experimenting with the overall power of the new Protoss air unit, specifically the Void Ray, in that matchup. So it tends to be playing almost a role reversal, whereas in Wings of Liberty, what you see is Zerg's going to greed, barely defend anything that comes at him, and then turn into the late game, if he doesn't get all in, into a Broodlord Infestor push with ridiculously slow but very powerful air units and a ground-based AoE caster. you see almost a role reversal where it's now the Protoss who's building up like the big Tempest Carrier Void Ray Death Ball with High Templar underneath to storm Corruptors and Hydralisks.
Right, right.
And then he like cannon, whereas the Zerg will Spine Crawler push across the map, the Protoss is going to cannon push across the map because he doesn't need all those minerals.
Makes perfect sense. Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to let him finish, then I have a question for you, Malcolm.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was wondering, how do you feel about the Zerg in Heart of the Swarm? We've heard about the Protoss, but how do you feel about the Zerg?
Honestly, I've not played with the new units too much, but I like what they've done to some of the older stuff. Like, Mutalisks are really, really fast now. They have regeneration, so they seem a little more viable. It's just a matter of learning how to transition with them, I think. And the same thing actually applies to Hydralisks. I think Hydralisks are going to have a much, much bigger role in the game now, simply because they're not so slow off creep.
As we've seen in GSL recently, a popular build has been a Swarm Host Hydra combination.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, what do you think, though, Joel?
Swarm Hosts are one of the more interesting units that the Zerg for the Zerg right now, because they're kind of binary in the way they feel when you use them or play against them. If the Zerg is playing it properly, they feel almost unbeatable because they come at a time or as a reaction to Protoss simply being in a position where he doesn't have the damage output in his army to crush the Locusts. And if you don't crush the Locusts, the amount of damage the Locusts do will just wear you out very quickly. And very quickly the Swarm Hosts get completely out of control. If you do have it, however, if you have just barely enough damage, the Locust can quickly put you into a contained position, where Protoss will play out of the position, but Zerg will gain an advantage. However, if Protoss is in a position where the Swarm Hosts come out that he can simply crush it, or can simply crush the Locust spawn waves, Protoss is just going to march out and kill all the Swarm Hosts almost immediately.
Okay. That makes perfect sense.
So it's almost to the point where Swarm Hosts either give Zerg a vast advantage or are completely useless and lose Zerg the game, is what it feels like. It's just very extreme one way or the other. They're also very, very, very good at punishing an opponent who has fallen behind.
Alright, so it's kind of a way to end the game once you've already got the advantage. It's not something that's just going to give you that advantage.
I'm not sure I'd really qualify it as the best kill unit that Zerg has, but it's a great way that after you've secured a lead to make sure your opponent can't make a comeback.
Okay. Matt, sounded like you had a question.
I was gonna say another change that we've seen. You can now place creep tumors on ramps. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it just makes spreading creep a little bit easier and less nonsensical, where you have to like have the creep tumor. You want to put it down the ramp, but it's just barely too far away to click down the ramp, so you have to move it like a tiny bit closer to the ramp first. I mean, it's one of those quality life things.
I don't even want to think about how many seconds of games I've lost trying to fuck with creep tumors on ramps, dude.
Well, there you go, Malcolm. Do you think that's gonna, be a really good thing to have now that you can possibly control the map a lot faster using these ramps?
I think it's something that had to happen. I think Heart of the Swarm made a lot of user interface changes that just make life a little bit easier for both the player and an observer. I mean, I really like having the Nexus and the hatchery and the command center showing you exactly how many probes and whatnot are mining your minerals and gas. It just makes it easier as a player. You don't have to constantly be, selecting units or whatnot. It's an easy reference. I mean, I think a lot of I guess people would say the more mechanical aspects of StarCraft, as far as just brutally checking the most obvious things, have become a little bit less mechanic oriented and more just visual.
I've heard a lot of people say that Blizzard is actually making the game too easy for people. For example, splitting your units and automatically setting your rally point at the beginning of the match if you choose to have that toggled on.
It's not so much a question of ease. That was specifically put in as a fix for latency issues in Battle.net, where players would start the game and then both players would load in. One player would load in slower than the opponent, so he wouldn't even get to start mining for a good 5 seconds after the game has started. You can actually turn the auto split feature off.
Right.
If you prefer to do your split yourself. And the splitting it does for you isn't really a very good split. So
Right.
if you happen to have decent latency and you're capable of doing a better split, which is not that difficult, you definitely should do it. So it's definitely not a question of making the game too easy.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just to make it more fair for the lower level user. I don't think you're going to see that applied at all at the higher levels.
Right. I've had a lot of friends of mine that are Masters League player who do not like that at all, and they like to split their units on their own still.
Yeah, and that's going to be because of the extra economy you get. Think about it. Basically all the rally does, it doesn't even split your units really. It sends them all to one
Right.
or two mineral patches, and then they split themselves afterwards. Whereas that's lost movement time. If you had actually rallied them to your nearest mineral patches, and you keep them hard locked there, I know most pros are still doing that. It's still going to give you a much better economy than if you're at the further away ones, and that's just something that the game doesn't factor in for you.
Right. One other thing that I'm not sure if it's true or not. I've heard that that your probes, people are saying in Wings of Liberty, there's about a second when that probe first mines the mineral, where they wait about a little bit of a second before they go back, and they say now that in Heart of the Swarm, that second is gone, allowing you to gain resources just a little bit faster.
Yeah, he mentioned that earlier, didn't you, Joel?
Yeah, that's
He
what I
was
was talking
talking
about.
about when a probe approaches the minerals, I believe. That what I heard was as soon as it mines the mineral, it would wait and then turn, and now it just goes straight
It's
back.
it's both. It's a question of acceleration, deceleration while mining.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that kind of wraps up our introduction to Heart of the Swarm here. Guys, I hope to see you around on Heart of the Swarm. That's going both to my casters and the lovely viewers. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I really hope you enjoy it. Please click subscribe on your YouTubes, as well as leave a comment, because it's great hearing your feedback, and I respond to each and every comment personally. So please drop us a comment. Check out StarCraft 2 Strategy on YouTube, as well as their website, starcraft2strategy.com. The YouTube is SC2S Space Community. So check that out as well, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and this is Shaft signing off. Bye-bye.